afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our panel today, Adding Bricks to Clicks, is going to focus on the opportunity and the challenges and for bricks and mortar retailers to go online, deliberate upon whether there is a real opportunity or it is a figment of our imagination, and how to address that opportunity, and conversely, the threat if we do not address that opportunity now. We are fortunate to have a panel with representatives from both sides of the digital divide, and I hope that we can have some interesting discussion on this subject. We will have some questions to the panel as we go. To start with, may I ask Rajiv to start with his presentation, and then we can move on.
Good afternoon. The idea today was to try and reflect on one's experiences in e-commerce, both on the offline retail side, the time I spent at Future Group looking at Future Bazaar and a number of online properties for Rezone, Pantaloons and Big Bazaar, and the last 18 months working with a number of offline and online retailers to try and figure out, okay, how should we imagine e-commerce, okay, in the session or in the phase that's going to follow. I came across the statistic last year that in the US market, a significant proportion of successful online retailers are actually offline players, retailers and brands. Now, the statistic caught my attention, not so much because India is going to follow in a US model, but more thinking in terms of 2 points. One, what might be the enabling conditions in India, which could bring about a much stronger offline retail play? And second, if those enabling conditions were to take place, what would offline retailers do to succeed online? Now, on the former, as far as the enabling environment goes, I think we're largely there given the level of digital penetration which has happened in the consumption cycle. Our consumers, whether they are urban or rural, spend a significant part of their time on an online channel, researching before purchase, and increasingly also transacting naturally and sometimes through inducement. So to a large extent, I think we have the consumers there in terms of getting online. There's an ecosystem available where there are a number of online channels, marketplaces are coming up. But what's interesting to observe is to what extent has e-commerce thinking or online thinking got seeped into the offline retailers. I think that's basically where a lot more work is needed. In the last 3 years, I think as offline retailers, we've had an opportunity to experience e-commerce in a certain fashion. I think it's time to change that and look at things very differently. So my brief presentation is basically about the fact, okay, the hypothesis or the thinking really is that so far in India as offline retailers, when we've been thinking about online retail, it's been stuck in a certain form and structure of a website-based model. The media to a very large extent has presented the pure play offline retailers, and that's in a way become the model or a role model for offline retailers. I believe e-commerce is not a model for an offline retailer. It's not a business model. It's much more a resource or a platform, or probably even equated to a kind of marketing ERP, which means the opportunity really is to first figure out what we actually need in our offline retail business. I mean, are we just trying to ensure that we're able to provide better content to customers, okay, before they shop? Or are we trying to ensure that customer service is better? Are we trying to bring about discovery of a larger assortment? What really are the needs that I have in my offline retail business, and then trying to figure out what part of e-commerce, okay, fits in over there. I mean, too often the temptation has been to take the path of least resistance, to go and build up a particular website, provide the catalog, and then you believe you have an online retail business. But what you'll end up creating is more a stranded e-commerce asset, which is not connected to the core. So the first aspect is to go function over form. And to go function over form and figure out where exactly these needs are, one finds some very interesting companies. For example, if you take Gitanjali, who's been doing some rather innovative things on their e-commerce business. They recently launched a franchisee-based model where they're marrying e-commerce along with franchisees because they believe that's a kind of new channel which will work. We have a steel company which wants to use e-commerce for the distributors to connect better with their retailers. So it's not really B2C, but just bringing in the order management element. There's another company which is an adhesives company which wants to use e-commerce to discover new stockists, so it becomes more a B2B model, which in turn may serve a B2C audience. So I guess it's about trying to figure out where exactly is the use case, where's the need, and not just a particular construct. To drive that discovery of need, I think as retailers, we need to start understanding more what our consumers are actually doing, okay, on an omni-channel journey. Very often, there is a certain assumption that consumers are probably just coming to a site and just researching and going away. I think a consumer's online journey is a lot more complex than that, depending upon the kind of situation where the consumer is buying something. During the research phase, they could be using multiple channels. During the consumption phase, where they're going about sharing their feedback, it could be many more. I think it's time as retailers, we try auditing, we try figuring out what exactly is our consumers' online retail journey or the journey, and then figure out, are we present at all those points? For instance, if I have during Diwali shopping, a lot of consumers are going to get on and start researching on websites or products. And if my products aren't listed over there, or if I don't really have a good offer there, then however big I might be offline, I'm more or less invisible in that part of the business. So the second part is to start going customer backwards as against website forwards. The third one is, again, as retailers, we often found that whenever we launch an online retail initiative, it's usually a very small percentage point of the larger retail business and doesn't get attention. So the more you try and use the organization's assets, okay, there isn't response. We aren't able to use the customer base. We aren't able to use the logistics network. The sourcing merchandising teams sometimes don't cooperate. So there's a temptation to again get to the path of least resistance, have your site, have an independent team, and get them to start building the business. To acquire the very same customers the retailers have already acquired, you'll end up doing AdWords and spend 1,000 rupees to acquire the same customer. I mean, that is not a very useful strategy. Even though it might be more difficult, my learning over the last few years is that it is better to take the more arduous and longer journey of connecting e-commerce to the core strengths of offline retail, which is the customer base, which is the stores, trying to even reimagine what a store can be like if you marry online into the store, which I tried doing at eZone in a few places. Even trying to see from a sourcing and merchandising point of view how to use common sourcing merchandising teams. It involves more wiring into the organization. It involves looking at what kind of new incentives you can provide to the offline retailers for them to support online retail. So it's going beyond technology about trying to integrate. We had very, very serious and significant challenges try to wire into the eZone organization, the Big Bazaar organization, and Pantaloon organization. But over time, we realized that those efforts are worthwhile. You may be able to set up a website in 3 months' time, but it probably takes anywhere between 3 to 4 years to really set up a good multi-channel business. And the last set of points about learning from online retail. I think our Kirana stores have done extremely well in learning from modern retail and are taking the right elements into their store. So if you take the new post-makeover Kirana store has got POS systems, they bundle promotions, okay, they also have self-service. So they've taken the right elements from modern retail and fitted that into the Kirana format. I think as modern retailers, there's much for us to learn from pure play online retail. First is customer service. The quality of customer service in online retail is significantly better than offline. The use of analytics, digital marketing, product experience, taking the right elements from online retail and trying to embed that into an offline retail's e-commerce strategy should produce better results. And the final point is one size definitely doesn't fit all. The idea of purely thinking about e-commerce in a website construct, okay, is something which probably belongs to an earlier era now. We need to start looking at things differently. It's quite possible that you can very much participate in online retail even without having a website. The number of brands today who are selling on marketplaces and other online channels who have a digital presence, but they feel they're not yet ready for having a digital channel. So I guess it's a matter of figuring out different types of models which fit your business before you really go and start taking up a serious initiative. Thank you very much.
Before we move into discussing some of these points with the panel, Abhishek, over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Abhishek from brick-and-mortar.com, a very, very young, 1.5-year-old online business selling shoes. It's an honor to be here amongst all of you, the doyens of retail. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The reason we are here is because I think we all believe anything that is bought today will be bought online too. So how do we add clicks, the online shoppers, to our business, current business, which is the bricks? When we started the business, we went to a lot of brands and said, okay, we're starting a shoe site and we want to buy your stuff. Some of the brands said, online, new channel, we'll come back to you how we deal with you. Fine. Some others said, new channel, distributor, excellent. Buy my stocks, put it online and sell it. There were some others we met who said, we are actually brick-and-mortar retailers and we want to start selling online. And so I think the best way is, let's put all our products online and it becomes an online business. So the story here is everybody looks online with the eyeglasses of brick-and-mortar retail. Whereas actually it is a big paradigm shift in how you think and do business. And that's what I'll go through in the course of the presentation. Yesterday I've been through a lot of sessions and a lot of things were mentioned about retail, like penetration of retail is limited. The incremental costs of gaining new customers is high. Retail space is scarce. And Mr. Bayani mentioned that maybe convergence of online and offline could be the answer to be $1,000 trillion retail business in India. So therefore, to me, online is more complementary to offline, but requires a significant paradigm shift for implementation. This is what is our approach to business. So you have the e-tailing, and it has three variables. One is me. Second is everywhere. Third is easy. What is me? What do you see here? 1,000 customers? Actually, the online shopper is about this. The basic call between offline and online is, do you actually want to sell what you have online, or you want to sell to the person who's buying online? Products, merchandise, approach. So the we approach, or the we all and they all, has moved to I, the individual. All shoppers would like to express their individuality, have their own individual fashion. Maybe they don't want to buy what somebody else decides what is good for them. It's about individual fashion. That's one of the reasons we set up brick-and-mortar.com, because personally, when we go to stores and we want to buy formal shoes, we see black and brown, and we also see black and brown. And if you compare the styles offered across the brands, 19, 20, they are the same. So where is a person who wants to be different and who wants to say, I want to wear red shoes with a suit? No opportunity for him to buy. Most of the shoppers who are searching opportunities online are individuals. And that's one of the reasons we launched our own private label. It's called Fermani. We launched 17 colors in a shoe, right from yellow, blue, red, wine, green, black, of course. The top selling line turned out to be the wine and the red. I think simply because nobody else does these colors. Plus, people bought more than one. Why not a shoe to match your shirt every day? It's not expensive. So this is a significant shift in the approach in the buyer who is online. So from mass, it has become mass customized. How well you can offer a selection to cater to that guy's needs. Then status symbol is now sharing. What is my status is where I derive this being a status symbol, being talked about. And all customers, once they buy, will talk about you, whether good or bad. So they actually are the new brand ambassadors. They will write about you. It'll be about social media, Twitter, Facebook. And other people would read, come to your site. So managing social tech is the new key. That is the new sales force. For example, we are running a campaign for breast cancer with L. And we are selling a range of pink shoes. The proceeds go towards the Cancer Foundation. We just launched the campaign, and we are very surprised that a lot of customers picked it up, put it on Twitter, put it on Facebook. We are very, very surprised some Bollywood celebrities also picked it up, started posting their statuses with it. So this is what it's all about. Social tech is the new sales force. So instead of having a mindset which says, I have to maximize my yield per square feet, and my store can only take 500 SKUs, so I will sell 500 top selling styles for the next 10 years and put it online, we have to look at who our customers are. They are individuals, what we can offer them, and how they can further, take the business further for us. The next paradigm shift is, it's everywhere. How do customers shop? The screen is the new shop window. So there were a lot of discussions about brands and their retail experience and how the ambience, the lighting, the store experience is important. But now how do people shop? Touch, swipe, pinch, and the product is bought. So this is another move which is there. And where do they shop? Not in your stores. Mobile, TV, online, apps. Point, no buy is the future. For example, a customer wants to buy, is making very informed decisions. He says, I'm a high arch and I want to buy a running shoe. What options do I have? Maybe he goes to a store and says, I'm a high arch guy. Maybe the store staff has the products and knows what to give him. Maybe not. But online, he can go, pull out shoes from various brands, compare prices, and make the best informed decision. Reach-wise, we also did something which was very innovative. We set up kiosks in smaller retailers just to experiment this hypothesis. So in small B and C towns, a retailer who has a 300 square feet shoe shop and can only offer 200 models, we give him a kiosk and suddenly he had access to 5,000 models. So in a D town where the distributor of a sports brand will not give him a very expensive product, he was a hero because he could start selling it now to consumers directly, which under normal circumstances would not have happened. So what we are looking at is choice in the palm of your hand. It's no longer, compare it to a normal retail experience. I'm from Delhi. If my wife has to buy footwear, she will go to Karol Bagh, drive 1.5 hours, spend 3-4 hours in the market, and maybe get something, maybe not. So all those retailers there can also be online. So people who actually want to buy your products, know your products, don't have to go all the way, all the inconvenience to get it. The third step, which is actually the most challenging part of online business, is easy. Perfect fit. Lot of constraints. The biggest question which was asked, which I asked myself when we started the business, will people buy shoes online? What about sizing? What about returns? Will they be honest and say, no, I really don't like it? But the answer is here. All these online retailers, including us, sell a lot of shoes. It's still an evolving technology. You have virtual trial rooms. There are innovations every day, but especially in a market in India where shoe sizing is standard from brands, but is very, very non-standard from from smaller suppliers, it's a big challenge. Second is service delight. Now the customer is not talking to a store person. Online is more service-oriented. He has no face. There's a voice at the end of the telephone, and there's a screen in front of him, and he needs to trust it. So, being Focus Shoe guys, we train our customer service agents. So if you call up and say, hey, what is a TPR sole, and why should I buy a TPR sole shoe and not a PVC sole shoe, he will give you a logical answer. Delight is the key. It is now a service business rather than a sales business anymore. So call center to delivery is the main paradigm here. Delivery still remains a big challenge. There's a movement called nowism. I want the products here today now as fast as possible. Ease of payments. Multiple ways of paying. Trust and transparency is the key. So once he has the above 3 parameters and he begins to trust you, he comes back again and again to your e-store. He knows your products. All are very well-known brands. And you have a complementary business happening on the side. In a nutshell, retailers, we have an online customer, we have offline customer, somewhere they do interact. The choice which the retailers have to make is whether they are offering what they have online also to that customer, or they want to do business with that customer. So it's a change in thought process. It is definitely not cut and paste. Effort has to go in to manage the three variables as a dedicated business, not as a side business of having products and selling it offline. All said and done, convergence it is, because retail has its limitations, online has its advantages. Thank you very much.
So, Rajiv and Abhishek have painted a picture of what the opportunity for bricks and mortar retailers to move online is. And as just to summarize, I think certainly as the customer is going digital and the new customer is now far more familiar with the screens as we see, it enables you to reach out to tier 2 and 3 cities, which would take a long time to develop a physical presence in. And of course, offering the channel to shop anytime and from everywhere to your customers who may not be able to access your stores with the same degree of ease. So if online retail or multi-channel has all of this going for it, why is it that we see so few bricks and mortar retailers really taking the plunge and developing any significant online presence so far? I mean, the online has been around for several years now, but we still see very few of the larger retailers even having developed any meaningful presence online. So what do you think is holding them back, and what are the key challenges they see? Pawan, would you like to talk about that, please?
Rajiv just set the tone that 80% of the e-commerce retailers are the brick-and-mortar retailers in US. I guess the reason why in India we are not able to understand that the major retailers, whether they are small or big for that matter, is that this requires a separate, that's what we were discussing with Vivek earlier, is that it requires a separate OPEX expenses instead of a CAPEX expenses, that this becomes an asset if you open a store which has the entire interiors, the rental and so on. And for e-commerce, it becomes more of an OPEX expenses. Second, I believe is that they do not understand the potential of this medium. So most of the retailers have a website, so it can be either just an informative website where you can get all the information about your product, your services. However, few of them do have the e-commerce integration wherein the people can buy, but the core focus which is required to establish this business is missing. And people who don't do this, I believe most of you must be knowing about Blockbuster, which was a DVD rental company based in US in 2000 or 2005, where they had humongous number of stores, and Netflix came over and they destroyed Blockbuster. It's in liquidation now. Or for that matter, a Barnes & Nobles, which has been very heavily hit by Amazon, and what's going to happen to them. They have also started sending lookalikes of Kindle. So unless you are very clearly focused, this is an important channel. Please don't ignore it. While all of us are sitting here, I can bet that many of us might have visited a website right now, gone on Facebook. So your customer is online. That is a store which is open 24/7, and the customer will follow you. You did not invite him to come to your store. Having said this, at Ferns and Petals, we realized this opportunity long back, and today 1/3 of our total top line comes from the online sales. And whatever sales which we get through online get executed through our offline sales, offline shops. So it's very important, I think.
Samar, you've been working with several small to medium retailers as well as some of the larger ones. What has been your experience? Why do you believe they are not really present in a meaningful way online as yet? I mean, what is your sense of that?
Actually, all my interactions, one of the things I think Rajiv did put in that point to an extent is that all the retailers start thinking of this as a shop very quickly. This is one more store, whereas to me it's a new way of doing business. So as soon as you make it a new, say that it's a new, I have one more store, you start applying all the logics what you apply in a store to an online store. And with my 13 years in this industry, I can tell you none of those logic work in the online world. So I've seen that as a very large, everybody needs to have a big paradigm shift to say that no, it is not it's completely different. Second, I see is that none of the retailers or brand owners are looking at very carefully as to what is the influence of online as a medium on their total sales. So it is very difficult to measure. But how do a person comes to know that how many people are searching for my kind of a product online and then resulting in a sales in the store? It's a very difficult to measure, but I have seen that some people are doing very good job of it. And this is also a factor of supply. And I'll just explain it in half a minute. As to that, if you don't put your supply online, obviously either you go on Google or you go wherever, you're not going to find that supply online. So it's a chicken and egg situation. There are hardly any products available online from any retailer or brands. So if a person searches, he doesn't find anything. And if he doesn't find anything, forget buying online. He doesn't even discover that kind of a product is available in your store. So my understanding is that since there is no supply, there is no discovery, and since you're not able to measure how to do it. If I have to make a bet based on my experience, I would say the amount of searches people do before they even go to a store is extremely high. So if all of them were about to convert into sales, I think people will have 30-35% of their sales online. I am using my judgment about it. So I see these two as a reason. One is treating online store as a store rather than a medium. And the second one I see is not understanding how powerful the medium is and how strongly it can influence even the retail sales if you put your supply up.
So I gather that one, it requires retailers to change mindset, certainly in terms of how they look at the online opportunity and how they address that opportunity, and certainly one part of that is that it is not just a store; it is also a medium to drive customers into their stores, and that's a trend which we are seeing in various parts of the world. There was a study which Macy's had done a couple of years back. There, $1 spent online influenced some $6 spent in the stores. So there is clearly a multiplier effect at work there, which is far in excess of what customers are actually spending online.
While my co-panelists have talked about it, and I'm assuming here that in this room most of us are retailers, so let me try and answer this question in a more simple manner, the way a retailer would like to understand. I'd like to do a small poll here. How many of you have bought online ever? You just raise your hands. And how many of you have bought online a non-book product? Okay, about 30-35% of us. So you have to buy online first before you start thinking of selling something. If you start buying it, you will yourself solve most of the questions which will be there on your mind. How a consumer will think and react. What are the benefits? What are the challenges? What is the ease there? And probably you'll start on your own, start thinking, how do I go and build my online store now?
Now, when we come to the more the more nuts and bolts kind of challenges that retailers face when building an online channel, certainly the two largest costs and possibly the most complex part, which retailers may not really have the capability present within their organizations, are one, the technology aspect of it, which may seem daunting to many, and the second is customer acquisition. So when we speak of technology and customer acquisition as these two elements are probably the most different from how bricks and mortar retailers typically manage their businesses, how do retailers then overcome these challenges in terms of technology and customer acquisition? Naveen, would you like to put your perspective on that?
Thanks, Vivek. So I would like to add one more dimension to the whole thing that we are discussing. We're discussing about the pure online stores. And another thing is that how to use online to get more footfalls into your own retail stores. So it's the power of online to leverage both for your online buying and selling and also for your online footfall. Now, if you just step backwards and as marketers, we look at the model called AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, and action. We all know that a person would buy when there is a need and which is in a particular place. Now, if such is a large volume of local searches, now you can very well imagine that how critical it would be for a retailer who is it's basically a local discovery to be present online. And that is why it becomes very, very critical for a retailer to be on platforms like Get because we get close to about 6 to 70% of our overall traffic through the search engines, through the Google. And you will be further surprised to know that out of this 43% of local searches, about 3/4 of the local searches, 75% are happening on the mobile. So if a retailer or a physical store is not discoverable on a mobile, is not discoverable digital, he is losing a very, very, very relevant traffic. So a store, an online e-commerce or a physical store has to make sure that he is available when a person searches for that particular product or service and it's listed over there and discoverable. Then a lot of sitting ducks, which we have been missing so far, you can actually pull them to your stores, physical or either online.
Right. So when we think of online and online customer acquisition, we believe that the way to go is to target customers from all over the country, if not all over the world. But as Naveen made the point that local searches and finding businesses locally is really a very significant part, which is probably also more relevant for bricks and mortar retailers to really target the customers in their catchment area to be able to find them, and that's a part of an important part of dimension to customer acquisition.
Professor Sinha from IMA, he was talking about the loyalty program. So he was talking about the catchment area. Now in the catchment area, one way to increase your sale is to have some loyalty programs to actually trap the current customers. But another thing is to get new customers from the catchment area, and that is something which is a very, very local search. So you should be there so that you are available in the catchment area whenever the customer searches for that particular product or service.
On building on bridging the technology capability gap, how do retailers, I mean, are there any quick fixes, or what might be because I do see that as a large challenge that retailers often see, that e-commerce is all about technology. And look, we don't have the technology capability, so let's not do it. So what is your take on this, Jitendra?
I think technology is, one thing is retailer thinks is either it is very simple or it is very complex. So when retailer thinks it very simple, he thinks that, okay, fine, let me have an in-house team, I'll retain, I will build something, which doesn't happen because that's not their core competence. I think they have to set the objective, what they expect out of the online channel, and then search for a technology partner who can give that kind of a competence and capabilities they have. They have the objective, and somebody like us who have the entire feature list, everything, they should search for them where they'll understand that yes, all my objectives are getting served. They should find a solution which is scalable, which is not taking their focus from their core, which is merchandising, promotion, customer service, all which is core for the retailer. So they have to give it to somebody who understands, who has the expertise, and then go ahead with building those objectives and meeting those objectives.
Quite often, for quite a long time, a lot of retailers and brands looked at e-commerce, as some of the people here mentioned, a significant investment on the platform. People were worried about how this is going to integrate with my inventory management systems, how am I going to manage supply chain, and so on and so forth. I think the biggest relevant question to ask when it comes to an offline retailer going online is, what is it that you need? Do you just need a storefront or a shop, as Samar mentioned? Or are you actually running a multi-channel business? Because that completely changes the way you view your technology investments. In today's world, setting up an online storefront, as someone mentioned in a presentation a while ago, is fairly cheap. It does not take too long. There are enough number of solutions, proprietary as well as open source, which let you get up and running in a really short period of time. But my big question, and when I have had conversations with retailers and brands, is what are you actually seeking from e-commerce? Are you expecting this to match your offline retail sale? I mean, then perish that thought for a few years, because e-commerce still is fairly nascent. This year we'll only be doing $1 billion in size, growing at close to 100%, but it's still only $1 billion. Total offline retailers 30, growing at 30-35% year over year, right? So let's recalibrate expectations. What being present online can get a retailer or a brand is a bunch of really interesting things that you cannot get offline. One, people spoke about pre-purchase research. Hey, it drives consideration. If you're not present online, you don't get considered. Being online provides you the access to rich analytics that you cannot get in your offline retail store. How many offline retailers can today stand up and tell me that I know exactly how many times a customer comes back to my store? When he comes to my store, what does he look for? And of the things he looks for, what does he buy? What is his average basket size? And what is the cross-sell upsell opportunity that I have with that customer? You cannot, it is not possible, at least economically viably, in the offline retail world. You can do that online. So if you want to go online, think about it. Think about real-time customer feedback. A lot of brands are just too many steps distantly removed from the end consumer. I mean, please, if you go online, you get real-time feedback from the customer on exactly what the demand trends are. Red shoes, I mean, what if red shoes is the biggest trend which people are looking for online, and your merchandising team, your buying team does not realize that? Right? But if you're online, you get real-time demand analytics, and then you can figure out what your sourcing strategy, etc. is. So let's not oversimplify the technology question. If it's just a storefront that you want, you pretty much get up and running at a very, very low cost. But if it is truly a multi-channel business that you'd want to run and leverage the online medium for the unique benefits that it brings to the table, yes, it justifies an investment. Yes, it justifies a whole new organization to help deliver to that objective. It is not just a storefront. Please do not belittle it by just setting up a storefront. And that's my humble request to the folks here.
Murli, on this front. So I think if you're oversimplifying it as a storefront, and which is what gets done because you're saying, let's put up a store and then people will come and then they'll buy and we'll be the next billionaires. I think that's the easiest part of it because there are so many SaaS technologies and all this available. But as Murli said, once you start thinking multi-channel, saying, okay, can I buy from a web store and pick up from the store? Can I go to the store and get it delivered through the web store? Can I do all these combinations? It does get complex. So it depends upon the ambition of the retailer. If the retailer's ambition is the second part, saying, okay, I want to build this multi-channel organization where I give phenomenal customer service. Customer goes to the store, gets it delivered home, goes to app, gets it delivered home, goes to web store, picks it from the store, or if he's passing by a store and searches on a local search and still buys it. I think that's a significant more involved technology decision. But it depends on the ambition of the retailer. There's one point I wanted to add. So we're discussing the part of infrastructure as to create it. One of the biggest limitations I have seen retailers don't go online is that they don't have anything to talk or they don't have the product content. If I'll ask, by my judgment, there's not even 2 to 3% of the total SKUs available in the country currently available online. It's just not more than that. People have just not offered. I think Vivek can say what percentage of Shopper Stop inventory is online. I think it will not be more than 10-15%. To a little bit more than that. A bit more than that. So they're doing a good job. But I'm realizing that really people, there's hardly any inventory available. To adding to the point on Murli, we're working with a retailer in the US, and I can tell you a very, very interesting stat. So they have started tagging their inventory. So for example, let's say there's a woman's dress, and it has polka dots. Right? So they have started going ahead and tagging polka dot by sizes of polka dots. Saying, okay, there is a 1-inch polka dot, half-inch polka dot, there's a red polka dot, there's a whatever polka dot. And with that kind of information which they're putting on their content, that particular retailer is able to understand trends far faster than anybody else available in offline. And so the big advantage I see apart from having sales there is that their marketing analytics and understanding of a brick retailer can be at a completely next level if he starts using and leveraging technology in online retail.
Thanks. So here I see a manifestation of the digital divide where we have Murli and Samar cautioning against oversimplifying technology and of course how technology is not just a storefront but how you can leverage analytics and so on. On the other hand, we have retailers who believe that e-commerce is all about technology And I think that's really where one needs to find the truth in between, that yes, technology is an enabler for an e-commerce business or to develop a multi-channel play, but is it all about technology? I probably differ on that. And yes, certainly you do need to build the technology, you do need to build the storefront, you do need to be able to track customers, which in the physical store environment you cannot do all of that, and certainly technology enables a lot of that. But for many of us who have that huge challenge in our minds that, look, e-commerce is all about technology and we are not a technology company, and so this is not for us, I think that's really where one needs to really seek the truth in between, how the pure players see it and how businesses on the other side of the divide see it.
We are a flower company. We have nothing to do with technology. When we started in 2002, the technology was what? We used to show one flower on the home page and just a couple of text links. When I look at it, I'm ashamed to see my site. Did I do that bad a job? We never understood technology. So technology is not the worry. First, jump across the fence. Get into e-commerce, put up a shop, you'll learn all the while. Technologists will come to you and help you, guide you, teach you. Okay, this is how it has to be done. We have Mudjack here, we have Ixula here. There are multiple technology options. Technology is not the worry. The worry is first take the jump, get into the business, everything rest will follow.
Right. So assuming that some of us are looking at taking the plunge over the next few months or years, what are the kind of models that a bricks and mortar retailer can look at? I mean, we do see several models emerging. One can sell on marketplaces, one can build their own website, one can build on a licensed platform, one can even outsource their technology completely. So what are on this spectrum of choices available for a bricks and mortar retailer to go online, what do you think are the models which suit what kind of retailers in terms of the nature of the business or the scale of the business? Murli, would you?
Here's the way I see this. In terms of choosing which model you'd want to use to go online, don't restrict yourself to one choice. That is the power that the internet gives you. There are marketplaces, sell on marketplaces. It's easy to set up your own storefront. Please set up your own storefront. There are other B2C online retailers, e-tailers who are willing to sell your products. Do sell with them. I mean, be present in as many platforms as possible because each one provides very, very unique value to you. Your own storefront, you have the value of creating your own brand, right? That website, that e-commerce site of yours tells your customers something about your business, what you stand for. You gather, because you own the user, you gather some amount of intelligence on that customer and therefore can build a relationship with him. If it's selling on a marketplace, it is potentially a really low cost way of starting online. Maybe that's your starting point, a marketplace like eBay, and there are a few more. Maybe that's your starting point to wet your feet in terms of going online. Now, there are advantages of a marketplace vis-a-vis being just a vendor, say to a B2C retail site, because there is again some degree of customer intelligence and relationship with the customer that you can build by being present in a marketplace vis-a-vis another vendor site. So if there is one piece of advice that I'd like to give you, spread your net far and wide. Over a period of time, you'll figure out where the ROI works best for you. But please be present with your own site and present in other platforms too, because the consumer is evolving really, really fast, right? You never know where the consumer is going to land on when he initiates a search on a search engine and actually ends up finding your product. And that will be my starting piece of advice to anyone wanting to go online.
Rajiv, your view on models that physical bricks and mortar retailers can, what kind of model fits what kind of retailer? You spoke about one model doesn't fit all. So would you tell us about what you think are, I mean, say for a specialty retailer who's got maybe a limited number of stores in in maybe one or two cities, to one of the larger chains which operates across multiple cities, how would the choice of retail models in terms of what they should go for? We do see some reasonably large retailers completely outsourcing their e-commerce, the e-commerce bit of it, And on the other hand, we see retailers building their platforms from scratch. So what do you think, what kind of models work best for what kind of retailers?
Thanks. I think I'd like to separate that question in two parts. The first is, what are the channels? And second, what are the ways you build capability in e-commerce? Because they're two different parts over here. Now, the channels aspect of it, as Murali clearly mentioned, at least in the initial time, when you're trying to figure out what works, okay, more is better, as long as one is monitoring what's going on. Marketplaces provide a certain idea. Getting on to individual sites like Yebi or a Flipkart or Jabong also helps the brands. So I think these are the kind of opportunities available for brands. But if you are a retailer, chances are that a retailer by himself is less likely to get on to other online retail sites. Okay, he may probably try and build his more retail business. So if you are a retailer with a set of stores, it's about rediscovering your own store. And instead of trying to acquire customers, okay, through an expensive third-party process, perhaps you try and connect stores and your online operation a lot better. Connecting your own customer database, okay, to your online business better, okay, aspects to be seen. So that's what I would say from a channel perspective. If I see even smaller retailers, so there my hero is a company called JJ Mehta, which in Bombay is in Dadar, less than 400 square feet store. In the physical world, it looks like a small shop, but on the online world, it's probably the leader in camera businesses. This small store has discovered and exploited online to the hilt. They have a community with 7,000 customers, very active. They run classifieds, buy and sell of cameras, okay, of used cameras and new camera products. They also sell new cameras. They're very active on Twitter and Facebook. And it's how a small store has been able to magnify its presence. If you search on Google, their listings, okay, will be even higher than Flipkart. Okay, so this is how a company has discovered the value of content and community and been able to build its business. So at least for a smaller retailer, you're able to get back and configure the capability because it's one person taking decisions. The larger company, for example, in eZone, it took a long time. So we sat down and figured out what are all the points of connect between online and physical. And we discovered at least 30 points where online can have an impact on the physical business and vice versa. And the effort was to start making it work with the people, with the right kind of incentives, the right kind of organization. So the problems are more trying to get the organization aligned and not necessarily just discovering channels.
So just to add to what Rajiv said about the communities, so our experience has been that we have launched very recently. We have launched a fashion community, fashion.garage.in, and on that we integrated one of the leading online stores, Zoe, and it's just a small beginning that we have done, but it's about discovery at the right places. So today this store is getting more than about 300 actual sales, per month, which is just the beginning. Now, which the number may sound a little small, but it's the community of people looking for that product where they come and discover the information about fashion, and suddenly you are present over there. That makes a lot of sense. So on one side, while you worry about the technology, the storefront, the other worry, bigger worry should be that how do I get again discovered with the relevant set of customers, those who are moving in a certain community.
Just to add on, and you also brought up a very nice point a while ago that local searches are very high, and that's really a very strong point here. But just to build on that, I also believe that the way new age consumer is coming and spending more time on internet, and the behavior is going and trying to figure out everything on Google or a search engine. And if a brand is not visible on a search, there's a case of missed branding opportunity, not just a sales opportunity. And increasingly, I'm saying in the youth and the younger consumer that if a brand is not available on a search engine, it really gives a very different impression. So, and therefore this only adds to the point that even if you're maybe missing out your own transactional website or a corporate website, you can still be present on a search engine through one of these, models, or a marketplace model, or someone like us or Flipkart or whosoever. So at least your product, your name, your brand name would be visible on a search engine.
Also, not only the search engine is where your site can come up, but also you have to see, are you there on the listing sites where your store or your site can be discovered. Again, to bring back the same point on the searches, are you there on the mobile medium? Now, why I'm re-emphasizing this point is that mobile as a platform, today in US, the statistics show that of the total mobile web searches, whatever the consumer consumes the web on the mobile, Today, the usage of the apps as a web platform is now about 1.5 times the usage of the general web search on the mobile. So are you there on the apps which are pertaining to your industry? Are you listed over there? Are you shown over there? Are you discovered over there? Is very, very critical.
So now moving on to the future, there is also a belief amongst some of the bricks and mortar retailers of various sizes, from the very small to the very large, that online retail is really maybe a passing fad, and they believe or even hope that all of the pure players which have grown very strongly over the last few years are suddenly going to collapse and disappear over the next few years because the models are not sustainable. And likewise, I believe on the other side of the divide, we have the pure players who believe that customers are going to start shopping online in a big way, and certainly that is going to threaten, if not completely decimate, a lot of physical store businesses.
Let me just, before I try and answer this, let me give a perspective here. And I said it elsewhere in another forum also. In 2010 IRF, when I was here, and a lot of people asked me, what are you doing? I said, I'm setting up a e-retail business. And that point in time, it was known as brick-and-mortar.com. And everyone said, what's that? What's e-retail? Last year, 2011, people had heard here about online e-commerce. And we said, now brick-and-mortar has become AB. People have heard, we have done some mass communication. I said, yeah, we understand what's e-commerce. We are seeing it, but we want to learn more about it. And in 2012, we are seeing more panel discussions. We are seeing much more interest from the offline retailers. They want to set up their websites. They want to participate and put up the products at least in one of their websites. So I think it's a very positive direction the business is taking. Having said that, last 3 years were extremely formative years for the e-retail industries. And why I say formative? While at the one side we say it's just $1 billion industry, it was just a 800 crore industry in 2009-10. It's a 5x growth in 3 years, and the growth has happened when none of us have the infrastructure, none of us had the experience of e-commerce, none of us had the capital to build this company. We were taking small capital from venture capitals, doing pilots, showing successful pilots, raising more capital, building scale, building infrastructure, all that has happened on run. Now in 2012, as we speak, we got a robust infrastructure in place, I must say that. I think some of the companies, including ours, we got such a state-of-art fulfillment center. I'll invite everyone to come and have a look, and we really feel proud of it. It's based on some global best practices. And when you go and stand on an e-commerce fulfillment center, and that's where you will realize this is for real. This is not going to go anywhere from here onwards. The logistical challenges, I think we've discussed in this panel also and elsewhere also, are a problem. Yes, we don't have delivery networks, we don't have courier companies which can do forward and reverse logistics. So what did a company like ours did? We went out and built our own last mile delivery network, which is very strong today, and which is far better than any of the best of the service providers today. So we have done all that hard work. With the infrastructure in place, with a critical mass of consumer, which is nearing 5 million consumers which are actively buying online, it's all set to go. The third pointer, we all know that globally, e-commerce or e-retail more specifically has really taken the same path and route as a broadband penetration has taken. We still have just about 8-9% of broadband penetration in the country. In next 2 to 3 years, this is likely to go to 20%, 30%. There's no reason why it will not take off. So all these things put together, if you see, these are, and I feel the inflection point is still not arrived. These were, as I said, formative years. These were very early years. Consumers will start coming to online stores same way when the consumers 12 years ago started adopting mobile phones. When mobile phones arrived in 95, it was supposed to be a very expensive product of 18,000 rupees, and was supposed to be for few people. It was a niche product. 6 years, 7 years down the line, it became mass. It's a FMCG product today. And e-commerce is going to take the same path. That happens next 6 months, that will happen in 18 months, for anybody's guess. but we will see hundreds of thousands new customers walking into online stores very soon.
So Manmohan, do you see a very real threat from the online players for the bricks and mortar retailers in the 5 to 10 year time frame, or is that going to be limited to only certain categories like say books or electronics or maybe a few other categories? Or do you see that in categories like the ones you focus on, primarily apparel, footwear, etc.? So what is your take on this?
I don't think there is a threat of e-commerce to physical retail. I don't think either of the two can replace each other, and they can complement well. And more specifically for an economy like us, where the physical retail is still struggling to reach out to, to penetrate to the real country. We all talk about tier 2, tier 3 story in India. Left, right, center, last 6 years, every international conference I have gone, we have talked about and sold India tier 2, tier 3 story. But let's be honest, how many of us have been really gone out and successfully gone and built retail stores in 100 cities? How many retail chains are there in India who are present in 100 cities? I'm not talking about 100 stores, I'm talking about 100 physical cities. You can count them on fingers. It's tough to take the physical retail outside. So, and consumption is growing, aspirations are growing, consumer wants the product, you are talking to the consumer more on mass media, unlike 5 years ago where you wanted to do more local advertising, now every brand wants to go on television and national print. So you are making yourself aware, you're making consumer more aspirational for your brand, but you're not giving the product out there. So I don't think there's a replacement issue at all here.
Abhishek, your quick take on that?
Actually, Vivek, I really like when you say digital divide, because I just crossed this divide 1.5 years back from retail into online space. And having done that, I can definitely say online is here to stay. I also liken this to the fact if you compare to what retail was in the 90s. It was small shops, then it became bigger, then there was a consolidation. So that's where we are with the online space at the moment. It's very, very nascent, it's growing. And then, like it was said in the initial sessions as well, the statistics that with all this, modern retail has only reached 30% of the population. And the incremental cost of reaching 100% it's exponential. It is not incremental with it. So there is a convergence. There is no threat of one attacking the other. And it is a logical step for any retailer planning to expand his reach. Online is a faster, easier medium, and it is available now. It was not there maybe 10 years back. So both will coexist. Online is definitely here.
Vivek, I'd like to just add one point, like in terms of adoption, where you mentioned that what is the future. I think what we have seen in last 6 months is that from small retailers to enterprises, we are actually getting more than 150 closures every month. So the adoption, and primarily our clients are the offline retailers. So the adoption has significantly increased in last 6 months. The understanding, the ambition to go online, and all the constraints what they have to take the offline retail to reach many consumers. Actually, they are now taking the action. Like Pawan mentioned that, take the jump and everything will fall in place. I think people have started taking the jump. The adoption is increasing, and I think from tier 2, tier 3 cities also we are seeing a lot of retailers who have an ambition to go online have started using the online channel to increase their footprint across India.
So that's interesting. Are we actually seeing the small and medium guys actually moving online faster, whether it is through SaaS models like yours or participating on eBay? But strangely, we don't find that much enthusiasm for this channel from the mid-size and larger retailers, many of the largest retailers in the country today are really not online, at least not in any significant manner, or even have transactional sites. So quickly, can we go around and maybe if we can have one piece of advice from everybody in the panel to the physical store retailers to say what is the one thing they should be doing, and since we seem to be running out of time, if we can make that as quick as possible.
So my take is that, as Manmohan mentioned, the broadband being going across all block levels, 36,000 crores being spent by the government in broadband reaching each and every village. the aspirational value of all our entire generation who wants much more things faster, nicer, better with growing incomes. And 3 is the entire physical world where we are today available here. And if we don't go online today, I believe that in the next 2013 IRF, we are going to be a larger more sessions than what on e-commerce. And by 2014, I think we'll be a dominating presence here. So don't think about it. Please jump into e-commerce today.
My closing thoughts would be to actually answer a question that Vivek asked a little bit earlier in terms of, hey, is this thing for real? And let me answer it, pardon my rhetoric. If you think 150 million internet users is not real, then e-commerce is not real. If you think 40 million visitors to e-commerce sites every month is not real, then e-commerce is not real. If you think 7 million consumers shopping online today is not real, then e-commerce is not real. If you think the possibility of expanded reach across the entire country from a single setup is not real, then e-commerce is not real. I mean, the choice is for you to take. You can sit by the sidelines, you can be a naysayer, or you can just jump in, experiment and evolve your models and business practices as you go along. It's about time. Look, the cost is really, really low. You have to take the plunge. If it works, your returns are going to be fantastic. If not, hey, you'd have learned tons of things, and the next time around, you'll do it much better.
I think if I have to say only one thing, I'll say just do not underestimate technology and its ability to solve problems which we don't know today that it will solve. World's information was organized by Google just 12 years back. The world's way of working on or living your social life changed 6 years back in form of Facebook. World's way of getting small and medium entrepreneurs, an ability to reach across the world got invented by eBay 13, 14 years back. So I would say that you must be seeing the limitations of technology as it exists today, but technology will innovate itself and will move across. Do not ignore it. Here are 3 examples which I just put across. Travel industry's penetration in India is 40%. So there are categories which will come first, and then there'll be categories which will come later. And the limitation is technology. So believe in the power of it. If you're lagging behind, you'll just be talking about stories.
Okay. So one piece is very clear that having put up your store and having put up your physical or online store, are you on the medium where customers discover you? Now, these mediums, one of the things that we missed over here was, beside mobile and the web, are you there on the social media? No, there are many categories which can be very nicely pushed through social media. We have done some experiments with Get It Film Club as a community, and we have seen a huge traction for the brands that we can drive relevant traffic to them.
I think everything which will be sold online too. The question is, are you there?
So my point, as an offline retailer, it's about looking at e-commerce in terms of how it connects with your consumer at every stage in the journey. I think we should not look at measuring e-commerce purely in terms of sales and online, but there are specific metrics for each stage. Otherwise, we may have wrong expectations of success.
Yes, it's arrived. And just to add on what Pawan was saying a while ago, travel is a classic example. 2005 and 6, just take yourselves back 6-7 years ago. Every company in India had a travel desk. 6 years, I'll be surprised to see a travel desk in a company. And that's the kind of pace internet businesses grow. So wouldn't be surprised in the next 3-4 years, we are really here in for a very large e-retail environment.
My piece of advice is for physical store retailers is you need to shed some baggage, learn new tricks, and as we say at Shopper Stop, start something new. And we need to really do it now, because as probably what made us successful as real world retailers over the last 5 to 10 years does not really guarantee success over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that's really the message here, that we need to look at this channel seriously, and I think the largest challenge is really in our own minds.
Okay, so I had a very real world concern. We were selling candles online, but in India there is a requirement of road permits in certain states like West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan. So eventually we had to stop our business because the retail customer was unable to provide the form. And many of our consignments were seized at the border. So, I mean, a company like Flipkart can have offices in West Bengal and they can send the entire shipment to West Bengal in one permit, and from their depot they can distribute in West Bengal. But how can a small company like us handle this situation?
The answer is, if you're not really looking at a very large transaction volume and not trying to build your own infrastructure of delivery and fulfillment, I think such kind of instances can really be solved with partnering with someone like Flipkart or someone like us who will solve this for you. And if you really think that, no, you got a great business on hand and you have to build very large brand online and which will be also giving you a lot of transactions, I think you'll have to solve for all this yourselves. You have to go and open your office and do your local invoicing there. So it's whichever path you want to take.
A lot of e-commerce companies, as Manmohan said, have started fulfillment services as a separate business. They charge you a fee for it, and they can easily solve this problem for you. So fulfillment services. So Amazon is still looking to launch their fulfillment service in India, but there are companies who have already launched fulfillment services, and they actually do fulfillment, so they can take and do the entire the paperwork for you, and if you hand over the product to them, so for a small fee. So you should not be stopping your business, but you would be incurring an extra cost because a third-party fulfillment service will enable you all this. So they will have something in West Bengal or other states where this requirement is.
And lastly, let's all push our government to pass the GST. So I think that's going to make our life easy.
Vivek, we were together in the FICCI Retail Conclave together. So there I was interacting with the FICCI Retail Director before our session, and they were saying that they did a survey with some of the e-commerce companies, and they found 60% of the customers were not satisfied with the service. She also gave me one example that one customer bought a red sari from one of the pure play e-commerce companies, and after she bought it and she washed it, the color went off, and then she requested a return. And the return she got, the e-commerce company completed the cycle saying the customer is satisfied, the case is over. Customer responded that I got a pink sari. So what she had originally bought and what she got returned was a different thing. Now, another angle to this is we also see a lot of reader commerce, TV commerce happening. So are we leading to some kind of mediocrity there? You know, I would like Murli to add on to this, and Samar, maybe you can also add that are we really, I mean, this may also be to pure play e-commerce company. Are we really adding the talent which is required for each product category? Say, for example, apparel or jewelry. Do we really have that kind of talent which can manage that particular category as the pure retailers can manage? Do we really have that kind of expertise?
I think there were two parts to the question. Let me try and address the first part. Any kind of distributed commerce where the buyer and seller are not in physical contact with each other will lead to challenges / concerns on, hey, lack of touch and feel. I bought something, I didn't exactly get that. And it's slightly different in India vis-a-vis the Western world, where catalog shopping had evolved to a certain extent before the internet and e-commerce actually came in. Right? Catalog shopping as a method of buying didn't really exist in India. And therefore, yes, it is definitely a concern that various e-commerce companies are taking different approaches to solving. Some companies will provide an upfront assurance saying, look, you can return this product in 30 days and I'll give you a refund or a replacement. That's one option. With growing technology, right? People today have the option to, let's say, I don't know, you could get a couple of pieces, try one, return the other, especially on shoes and so on and so forth, stuff that Zappos pioneered. People are doing that. There are online, you could try this stuff online. For example, I was checking out the site for GKB Optical. It's a optical shop across the country. And it is amongst the most evolved experiences that I have gone through in e-commerce, not just in India, anywhere in the world. You can upload your picture, you can select the specific frame that you want, you can zoom in, zoom out, look at it from various angles. Stuff like that hopefully will help reduce the challenge that comes from the fact that you're not actually touching and feeling the product. Do we expect that to go away overnight and people feeling completely comfortable with shopping online? Absolutely not. And therefore, you need to have the remedial measures to provide a refund and replacement. Some of that you will incur two-way shipping, right? That's cost of doing business, and we have to factor that cost in. But that's a small cost. as compared to the total cost saving you will have by actually going online. So, I mean, please be prepared to spend that cost in terms of covering two-way shipping cost or even covering damages if it happens in transit. Stuff like that happens. This is reality. This is the real world. I mean, doesn't always work perfectly right.
Let me just try and answer this differently. The customer here bought a sari online, and after the first wash, the color went away. What was the guarantee if the customer bought the same sari from an offline store and after the wash, the color went away? How would she get to know at the time of buying with the touch and feel that the color will stay and not go away? Absolutely no way she could have found. But the fact that she has bought from e-commerce, for her it was very easy to go and say e-commerce is a lousy way of selling, or she has all the right in the world to go out and blame and accuse her e-commerce company on the social media and elsewhere, where at least 100,000 people will see. But if the same consumer will go and buy it from a physical store, and even if she's upset, at best she can go and shout in front of 5 customers. And that's the challenge with which we all e-commerce companies are living with. And we are going extra mile, saying free shipping, a fast delivery, reverse ship up, everything is like moon to the consumer. And still the challenge for us, and it's heartbreaking for us when we hear stuff like this, that because it was bought online, therefore it was bad.
Just like to add one thing, your question on whether online companies have talent or not. And also to what Murli said, what is the format of the online company? And the answer to that lies is, in India, I think we are the only vertical company which does shoes. So end to end, everybody who works has to have a shoe qualification. The biggest company in shoes was Zappos. It was not Amazon till it bought Zappos, right? And they were only single verticals. So yes, talent is there. It is being deployed. But at the same time, to what Manmohan said, customer's voice is easily heard here. If she had gone to a store, I doubt whether she would have done anything. But the moment a customer posts on Facebook, all online companies will quickly respond and resolve the issue. So there is talent and customer resolution. There will be issues. There will always issues on some customer or the other are quickly resolved.
We come from a different category altogether. We are into providing home solutions as in furniture, furnishing, etc. These are very big ticket items. What we understand from retail, e-retailing is most of the items that are sold are probably, in the vicinity of a basket size would be 500 to maybe 2,500, or maybe goes up to 5,000. But our ticket size starts at 5,000 rupees and maybe goes up to a lakh and a half. So how do we take up this challenge, and is it really feasible? Are people really going to buy such large ticket sizes over e-commerce?
At least speaking from our experience at shopperstop.com, we see the ticket sizes that we have online are pretty much the same as what they are offline. So we are not seeing lower ticket sizes on our website as compared to what we see in our stores. As I understand, jewelry is one of the largest, well, may not be one of the largest, but certainly one of the fastest growing categories selling online. And that again isn't really cheap. So I don't think ticket size, there is of course a challenge in terms of putting money on your credit card or, but I think that applies as much offline as it does online.
I think it's a bigger question, which is the risk you're associating the amount spent as a risk because the touch and feel is not there, right? So that's the risk. Plus you're talking to an entity which you're not engaging on a person basis so that you can catch the neck if something goes wrong. So my understanding is that the element of how do you cover the risk and how do you get the entity, how do you get to trust the entity, that needs to be covered. So people do it by free replacement, or they can use wallet services where they say, okay, once you are satisfied, then maybe PayPal I think does this. Maybe Murli can put some light on it, where you leave the money with a neutral service provider, and once the customer says, I'm happy with the product, then you release the money to the vendor. So there are multiple services available here. So it's a little different way of solving this trouble, but yes, it's related to the risk and lack of touch and feel. So people see it as a larger risk, and these are the elements by which you can reduce them. If you have
I don't think the ticket size is also a constraint here in case of furniture, because we sell all kinds of ticket size. We sell 100,000, 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh rupees jewelry also. We sell 50,000 rupees of cameras and 5 lakh rupees of cameras also, by the way. So issue with furniture to my mind is really the logistic here in India. Either you go and work out a distributed model and go and open warehouses in 30, 40 cities and say, I will do a local shipping. The furniture essentially has to, because of its volume and weight, has to travel the surface transport route. And I don't think we have that robustness today where we can take the furniture out on a surface transport. And that's a real challenge for furniture.
Thank you very much for attending the session, and thanks.